So in this video, I'm going to be talking about paradoxes, which are basically problems that, for the most part, don't have answers. Some of them are answerable, but I'm mostly going to be talking about the unanswerable ones, which this is also just going to be kind of an intro video for people who don't know what paradoxes are. But they are basically a problem that can't be solved or has a contradictory in it. That means there's no way around it. As an example, the most simple but also pretty interesting one is just words that say that the first sentence is the next sentence is false, and then the next sentence is the previous sentence is true. Because there's no possible way that could work, because let's say the first one is correct and the next one's false. That means the first sentence is false, meaning the second sentence is not true, meaning that the other one is true, but that means that one's false. So it's something that couldn't happen because they would just cancel each other out. Another example of a paradox is one called the grandfather paradox, which is if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, technically, you couldn't be alive because you killed the person who was a part of how you were born. So there's lots of things like that. There's tons of theories on how there could be answers for that one. But another example, this one's a much stranger one, but is pretty cool. It's called the crocodile paradox, where basically let's say a crocodile kidnaps a child, and they tell their parents that if they can guess whether the crocodile is going to give them back their child, then if they guess correctly, they will get their child back. So it's pretty straightforward. Like, let's say the crocodile's answer is yes, and the parents guess yes, they'll give that yes, you'll give us my child back, then they do. Let's say they think, no, you're not going to give our child back, but they say yes. Like, there's all these different things. But that's where the confusion arises, is if the parents say, I don't think you're going to give us our child back, then no matter what, they get their child back. Because if the crocodile isn't going to give their child back, then they actually got the answer correct, and they have to give their child back. But if they say yes, but if the crocodile's answer is yes, I'm going to give your child back, they got it wrong, but they still get their child back. So it's things like that where it gets surprisingly confusing. Paradoxes are really interesting. There's so many of them, but this video is mostly just meant to be a quick explanation of paradoxes for people who don't know what they are. There are so many. This is mostly just unexplainable paradoxes. There are things called explained paradoxes, which are paradoxes that do have an answer, but there's also lots of paradoxes that are like a lot more philosophical, like the ship of Theseus, which is basically, let's say there's this famous ship, but slowly, like, boards of it got rusted and stuff, and things got wore down, so they replaced them with new things, and then eventually they've replaced every single piece in the ship, and the original crew has all been fired or retired and been replaced by new crew members. Is that boat and the crew still the same ship? And then the question is, then if you took the pieces that were all worn out and rebuilt that, then which one is the actual ship, or are none of them? And that's a pretty interesting question, especially because this is the part where that gets actually practical, is humans are kind of like that, because your body, all of your cells in your body die and replace themselves. So if you're like, oh, the ship is a completely different ship because they replaced all the parts and replaced all the people inside of it, then wouldn't that mean that technically you're not the same person from when you were from like a few years ago? Because every cell in your body does eventually die and get replaced. With some cells do take longer to get replaced, but still, after about like 20 years, your entire body would be completely different. And same with your personality. Your personality probably would change throughout the course of your life. But yeah, so that's where I'm going to leave it with the paradoxes. I hope you liked this video. Please subscribe, it would really help me out. And goodbye.